Hey folks, welcome back. Thanks for checking back in. Hope y'all are having a great weekend. And happy early Veterans Day. Thank you to all the veterans out there for keeping us safe and protecting our freedoms. Today is oil change day on my 04 Envoy. This is an XL SLT with a 4.2 liter inline 6 motor on it. I'm going to show you guys how I change the oil, show you what I use, and I'm interested to see what the oil looks like. I've got to check my logbook to see how many miles I've got on the motor since my last oil change. I typically do oil changes every, say, 5,000 to 6,000 miles. That varies, you know, depending on driving conditions and things like that. My driver's information center indicator, you know, the oil life indicator, is telling me I've got about 43% left on my oil. So I don't wait until it gets all the way down to zero. Let's get started. I'll show you what I use, show you how I do it. Alright, so I let my motor warm up for just a few minutes, turned it off, and what I like to do, I'll just pull the dipstick out a little bit, and then I'll go ahead and take off the fill cap. Give it a few minutes, maybe about a half to a full beer's worth. Let all that oil drain down from the block into the oil pan, and then put the catch can underneath and drain it out. Now, as you guys know, the Envoys take 5W30, but since my car has about 270,000 miles on it, I'm actually using 10W30 full synthetic in my car, just because, again, it's got a lot of miles, you know, the bearings, the internals wear down, and I want that little bit thicker engine oil to give it some coating on startup, just to give it a little extra protection. You know, one little tip I learned from my dad many years ago when doing oil changes: when you pick up your oil filters from the store, before you even walk out, open the box up and just take a look at the seal right around. I've actually have had one and didn't check it before I left the store, that the gasket seal on the filter was coming up. So just a little tip there, check that seal before you leave the store. Alright, so I've got my 13mm socket. I'm just going to loosen this drain plug here. And just let the oil drain into the pan. I'll just let this oil drain, you know, until it comes to a very slow drip. And then I'll let it drip some more, just to get as much oil out of there as I can. There we go. Now, anytime you're working underneath your car, I'd always suggest wearing a pair of safety glasses and gloves. You never know what you're going to get on your hands, you know, fluid-wise, or any dirt particles that may fall in your eyes when you're underneath the car. Now, if you notice, I've actually have taken off the skid plate that goes right in this area underneath. I took that off quite some time ago, and I just have never put it back on. But when you're underneath the car with the skid plate on, there's a small access hole cut out right where the drain plug is for your oil, and that's just a simple, I think, 2 or 3 screws that hold that in. You undo that, open up that access hole, and you're good. So I'm going to let this oil drain for a little bit, and then I'll come back and show you how I do the filter. Alright, so to get set up to take the oil filter off, what I like to do, just get some newspaper. These are just some advertisements. Rooms to go. If you need a mattress, they've got them on sale for $6.88. But this is the waxy kind of newspaper, not the regular newspaper. And I just take it and I wrap it over the front sway bar just to give the oil kind of a little place to drain to, so it doesn't get all over the frame and everything. And that way when I'm done, I can just take this off, and it helps with cleanup a little bit. Alright, and to remove the oil filter, I've got one of these 3-prong claws that I use. This just fits on my 3/8 drive ratchet wrench, socket wrench. Make sure you get your oil catch can ready. And once you break the oil filter loose, you can then take the rest of it loose by hand. Make sure you got some rags ready. It's going to start draining. There it goes. I'll loosen it up just a little bit, let it drain out for a few seconds. And then once it's drained out enough, then I'll just take it all the way off. Unscrew the filter all the way. And drop it in your catch can. Alright, so once I get the oil filter off, what I like to do is I like to clean around the sealing surface of the filter, and then also clean the threads off just to get a good seal. Alright, so there's varying opinions on this one. I like to fill the filter up with oil before I put it back in. So I'll put a little bit here just to fill it up. Maybe not all the way, but fill it up just enough to let the filter media suck up the oil. And then I'll take a little bit of the fresh oil, put a nice seal, nice coat of oil around the seal. And then that's ready to go on. Alright, so now that I got the filter ready, put some oil in there, got a nice seal, nice coating of oil on the seal. And just screw that on, screw that back on, and the torque on this, if you will, is as soon as you feel the seat, or as soon as you feel the oil filter seat to the oil mounting, or the oil filter mount, turn it about 3/4 of a turn more. Just hand tight, and that's it. Alright, so now that you've got your oil filter put back on, it's properly tightened, and make sure you double check your drain plug, make sure that's tightened as well. I just use a nice big oil funnel to dump the oil in, and again I'm using 10W30 high mileage full synthetic, again just because I've got about 270,000 miles. I like just a little thicker oil on startups and just overall protection for the engine. So again, these 4.2 liter motors, they take 7 quarts of oil plus a filter, obviously. I'm just going to get all this oil. I've got 2 more quarts to go. I'm going to get this oil put back in, do a once over, make sure everything's cleaned up, make sure everything is looking good, there's no leaks. And then I actually reuse the bottle, the 5-quart bottle, just to dump all my recycled oil in, and I'll carry it up to an oil recycling place. So that's going to do it for this video. I hope it's been helpful to you. Again, I know most of you guys and girls know how to change your oil, but just wanted to show you how I do it. Thanks again for checking in. Please be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Alright guys, so here's a little bonus for you. I've got my oil all changed, and you've probably seen this in some of my other videos, but I've got a manual oil pressure gauge hooked up to my car, and I had hooked that up when I was doing some work on my engine because I had a low oil pressure issue, and I'll put some links in the description down below. You can check out that whole saga if you wanted to. Turns out there's a lot of folks who have, the check engine light that comes on, and your oil pressure gauge, seems to fluctuate pretty sporadically. And initially I thought that was related to a oil pressure switch. Well, I got to digging in my engine after I put my manual pressure gauge on to confirm the low oil pressure. After I got digging in my engine, I tore it all the way down, took the oil pan off, found out that the oil pickup tube was probably about 90% clogged. So I got that cleaned up. That solved the low oil pressure. But just as a bonus here, I wanted to do a quick startup video to show you what the oil pressure is actually supposed to be, or actually is, when you start up your car. If you know, the oil pressure gauge on the dash is really just an idiot light, and it shows 40 to 50 pounds psi of oil pressure when you're driving down the road. But let me show you what the oil pressure actually looks like when you start the car up. And again, this is fresh oil, 10W30, full synthetic. So here we go. Alright, so as you can see there, that's reading about 70 pounds, 70 psi of oil pressure, whereas the gauge on the dash is actually reading, what is that, about 40, maybe 50 pounds or so. So there you go, that was just a little extra bonus. I wanted to show you what the actual oil pressure is when you start up your car after a full oil change. Again, thank you all for checking out the video. I hope y'all have a great day, have a great week, and happy Veterans Day. Thank you to all the veterans who protect our freedoms. We'll see you on the next one.